Good afternoon, this is BBC One and the Lunchtime News with Sean Lay.
Emergency care doctors warn some accident and emergency departments are in a complete state of crisis. Rising flu and COVID cases are being blamed for adding demand to services which were already stretched.
All this is at a level that most of us who've worked in emergency medicine have never seen before. It's dreadful, and we've chosen our words carefully. It really is a crisis out there at the moment.
3 people have died following a fire at a hotel in Perth. And thousands are paying their respects to the late Pope Benedict XVI, whose body is lying in state at the Vatican. Hello, good afternoon. The Royal College of Emergency Medicine has warned that some A&E departments are in a complete state of crisis. Rising COVID cases and a severe flu outbreak have been blamed for adding demand to services which were already stretched. A number of hospitals have declared critical incidents, meaning they cannot function as usual due to extraordinary pressure. Our health correspondent Catherine Burns reports.
We're used to seeing pictures like this every winter now. Patients waiting in corridors and outside in ambulances as health experts talk about a crisis in care. This year, the warning voices seem louder than ever.
Most of the NHS employees would say that it's been one of the toughest winters they can remember.
I feel uncomfortable, deeply uncomfortable about the level of care that we are sometimes, because of the degree of pressure that we are providing.
Probably some PTSD from some of the stuff that I have seen and just worn out.
The data shows that things are worse now than at any time since records started in 2004. 1 in 10 patients who need admitting are waiting over 12 hours for a bed, with reports of some waits lasting 4 days.
It's dreadful for our patients, I'm afraid. Patients are waiting a long time for ambulances. Once they get an ambulance, they might be waiting outside our emergency departments for a long time to actually get in our doors. And once they finally make it through our doors, there are long waits inside our departments to be seen, and we're having to treat patients in all sorts of unsatisfactory places, such as corridors or areas that simply aren't meant to house patients.
The Royal College of Emergency Medicine believes that these delays mean between 300 and 500 people are dying in the UK every week. NHS England says it doesn't recognise those figures and that there are different reasons why the number of people dying could be higher than usual. But it's undeniable that the NHS is under extreme pressure. 18% more people have turned up to A&E departments in England in the last 6 weeks compared to the same time last year. 9,500 people are in hospital with COVID. That's more than doubled recently. Add on to that almost 4,000 with flu, another sharp increase. And it means that 13% of hospital beds are being used for COVID and flu patients. And all this comes with more strike action planned by NHS workers this month. Catherine Burns, BBC News.
Our political correspondent Ian Watson is at Westminster. Ian, ministers say they are spending more money, there are more staff. Are they under pressure to do more?
Oh, they certainly are, Sean. Of course, the unions have been complaining for some time about staff shortages, about pay in the NHS, but the new year has brought new criticisms. We've been hearing there from some of the professional bodies in the NHS. And in addition to that, there are these umbrella groups that represent NHS trusts, and they're speaking in pretty grim terms as well, talking about the NHS being under an unbearable strain. There are challenges facing the government on virtually every front, on capacity, on staffing levels, on morale, never mind those disputes with the unions and the strike action that's expected later this month. Now, Number 10 says the Prime Minister sees the NHS as a priority, and as we've been hearing, they are saying they're pouring more cash, £14 billion into the NHS, another £500 million to try to free up beds. But the whole issue is coming up the political agenda once again. Labour's argument is that there's been underinvestment in the NHS under Conservative-led governments, and they're much keener to blame the current problems on the Conservatives rather than on COVID. Now, MPs are still away from Westminster. They don't come back here until next week, Sean, but the Liberal Democrats today are now calling for Parliament to be recalled. They say with estimates of perhaps 300 to 500 people dying every week because of delays, a major national incident needs to be declared. Now, I don't expect the government to do that, but as pressure increases on the NHS, so too does it increase on the Prime Minister.
Ian Watson, thank you very much. Catholics have begun paying their respects to the former Pope Benedict XVI. His body is lying in state after his death at the weekend. Mourners will be able to file past the casket before the funeral is held on Thursday. Our religion editor Ali Maqbool sent us this report from the Vatican.
At dawn, the late Pope was moved from the monastery in the Vatican where he died for the short, solemn, private procession to St. Peter's Basilica. There he was taken through the nave to be placed in front of the altar. Outside, while this ceremony was taking place, thousands had formed a queue that snaked around St. Peter's Square. These were among the first allowed in through the doors to pay their respects in person. It's expected around 30,000 people a day will file past the Pope Emeritus on each of the 3 days he lies in state.
It's just one of those once-in-a-lifetime moments where you kind of feel quite more and more emotional as you get closer to viewing, the Pope's body and realise the impact that he's had, I guess, on everybody. So there was a kind of a sombre mood as the walk progressed, I guess.
What was that moment like for you when you were paying respects?
That moment I feel so honoured because Pope Benedict was a servant of God. We honour him, we follow his example.
Well, there has been lots of discussion over the last couple of days, of course, about how, in the eyes of many, the reputation of Pope Benedict XVI was tarnished because of a failure to act properly against perpetrators of abuse. Well, that wasn't the conversation being had here today among those who were the first who wanted to see him lie in state. At the front of the queue were a lot of priests, a lot of nuns as well, who really admired the Pope as a theologian, but also as someone who devoted his whole life to the Church.
Ali Maqbool in the Vatican City, thank you very much. The coffin of the Brazilian soccer legend Pelé has been moved from the hospital in Sao Paulo, where he died, to the stadium of the Santos Football Club, where he began his career. The convoy transporting the coffin was greeted by crowds and fireworks when it arrived just before dawn. The body will stay in the stadium until his funeral is held tomorrow. Pelé died last Thursday at the age of 82. 3 people have died after a fire broke out at a hotel in Perth. Guests at the New County Hotel in the centre of the city were evacuated shortly after 5 a.m. Our correspondent James Shaw is at the scene. What's the latest, James?
Well, what we know at the moment, and it is the very early stages of finding out what happened with this tragic fire, is that around about 10:05 this morning, the emergency services were called. Now, it was a very big response, 21 ambulance crews, we're told, and 9 fire vehicles. It's believed that the fire was on the top floor of the County Hotel. You can just see the corner of the building in the background there. It was actually put out quite quickly, we're told, by around about 6:30, so within a little more than an hour. Everyone was evacuated from the hotel, and this part of the centre of the city of Perth has been sealed off. Now, John Swinney is the local MSP. He's also the Deputy First Minister of Scotland, and he has described the events that have happened in Perth this morning as heartbreaking news.
James Shaw, thank you very much. The Ukrainian army says hundreds of Russian soldiers were killed in a school being used as a base in the eastern region of Donetsk on New Year's Eve. Russian state media say the facility in the occupied town of Makivka was hit by Ukraine using rockets supplied by the United States. Our correspondent Hugo Bachega is in Kyiv. What more do we know about this incident, Hugo?
Well, Sean, there's some conflicting reports about what happened in this town in the east of the country. The Ukrainian military say 400 Russian conscripts were killed, 300 wounded, although they haven't confirmed officially that they were behind this attack. Now, reports on Russian state media say this building was hit by those HIMARS missiles that have been provided by the Americans to Ukraine. And these reports say 15 people have been injured, so very different numbers here. And in the last hour, we heard from officials, pro-Russian officials in Donetsk, say that the use of mobile phone by soldiers enabled the location of this facility by Ukraine. So different accounts about what happened in this town in the east of the country. But if the Ukrainian claims are confirmed, this could be one of the deadliest attacks by Ukrainian forces targeting Russian positions in this war.
Hugo Pachega, thanks. 4 people have died after a mid-air collision between 2 helicopters near SeaWorld on Australia's Gold Coast. Queensland police say initial investigations suggest the crash happened as one was taking off and the other was landing. Those who died were travelling in the same helicopter. 3 other passengers are in a critical condition. Prince Harry has said the royal family has shown absolutely no willingness to reconcile with him and his wife Meghan Markle. In a new interview with ITV, the Duke of Sussex also spoke of his strained relationship with both King Charles and his brother Prince William, saying he wanted to get his father back and to have his brother back. The interview will be aired on Sunday. The Hollywood actor Jeremy Renner is reportedly in a critical but stable condition after an accident whilst he was ploughing snow at the weekend. A spokesperson for the star told US media that he was flown to hospital where he's receiving excellent care. Renner was nominated twice for an Oscar. He's known for his role as Hawkeye in the Marvel film franchise. Now, looking after an ill parent or other relative is one of the most important but also one of the toughest things we do. Imagine doing it whilst you're still growing up. The Charity Carers Trust says many young carers don't even realise they're doing something special. But it says they do need more help. The Scotland Government agrees and has created a national strategy intended to prevent them feeling isolated. Lorna Gordon has the details.
Going to give me my medicines down and I'll take them just now. Thanks.
I help my mum with personal hygiene, like washing her hair. Sometimes I go out to the shops after school and buy stuff.
Did I take these earlier?
I help my mum a lot, like with emotional support, because it's hard on her as well.
13-year-old Elise helps care for her mum Liz, who has reactive arthritis and adrenal insufficiency. Elise's dad works 6 days a week as a delivery driver, so the family have to rely on Elise to help.
I think she's just something else. And she does it with good humour all the time. And she's a teenager and she should be grumpy with me. And yeah, there are grumpy moments, but nothing like you would think. And she just will say, yeah, no problem, go and do it. But I feel so guilty that I have to ask her to do these things.
For Elise, looking after her mum is almost a full-time job on top of her schooling. Her daily responsibilities are very different from her peers.
I'm proud of what I do, but kids don't understand how lucky they are. Like, I wish I could go out, sorry, I'm getting like dead. Like, I wish I could go out and have a day with my mum.
They are a very close family. Other support comes from a local charity. Those using the centre said it helps spending time with other kids who have similar duties at home.
It's made a difference of me being more confident in my social skill and physical skill.
Some of the young people here told me it took time to realise they'd taken on a caring role.
I didn't know I was a young carer when I was helping my mum last year because my mum had a stroke, and then me and my dad just hadn't, when she came back home in December, really my dad was struggling at first, so I helped him and I've been helping him ever since.
And they feel that more formal support in their homes and at school should be available.
We don't get enough support and sometimes we go unnoticed and we feel low.
The Scottish Government estimates those here are among the 30,000 young people who take on an unpaid caring role in Scotland. Elise and her friends say their goal, by sharing their experience, is to show others they are not alone. Lorna Gordon, BBC News, West Dunbartonshire.
deserving of all the support they can get. Right, it's time now for a look at the weather. Here's Darren Bett. Happy New Year to you, Darren. It feels like it's been quite a tranquil start to the year, has it?
Yes, it's a much quieter day today, actually, Sean, and arguably the best day of the week ahead. The winds are lighter, most places are dry, and there's much more sunshine around as well. This window of dry weather follows this cloud that brought rain to some of us overnight. But if we look out in the Atlantic, and this is what's heading our way for tomorrow, a very different look and feel to the weather tomorrow. Not only will we see cloud, these weather fronts will bring some rain in from the Atlantic, but a stronger southwesterly wind means milder air as well, so temperatures are going to be higher than today. And it's been quite cold in Scotland today. It was a frosty start this morning. We've actually seen some wintry showers in the northwest of Scotland. Those will continue through the rest of the day. 1 or 2 light showers coming in off the Irish Sea. Those will fade away, and on the whole, plenty of sunshine through the rest of this afternoon, but a chillier day than it was yesterday. Temperatures perhaps only 4 degrees in Scotland, could make 9 or 10 maybe in the far south of England and Wales, but those temperatures will drop quickly this evening and overnight. We get an early frost as the showers fade away, but then temperatures will rise later. This cloud, wind and rain starts to come in from the Atlantic, and there may be some snow over higher parts of Scotland because temperatures by the end of the night still close to freezing here. Likewise in the far northeast of England. Otherwise those temperatures will have lifted by tomorrow. We've got that snow for a while over higher parts of Scotland. Otherwise it's rain that's pushing through. It may turning a little bit drier and maybe a bit brighter for a while, but not for long, because the cloud will thicken again. More rain more widely as we head late morning and into the afternoon. Some sunshine maybe for northern parts of Scotland, but windy weather I think, especially in Wales and the southwest, with some heavy rain over the hills. But temperatures are going to be higher than today. It's a milder day for much of the country. Temperatures will be in double figures. Still a bit chillier in Scotland, and there's more rain to come in Scotland. And given how wet it's been just recently, there could be some further local flooding and travel disruption. Western and central parts of Scotland seeing as much as 50 millimetres of rain, 2 inches of rain during tomorrow and also tomorrow night. That rain is going to be sitting across the whole of the country for a while. Those weather fronts will get swept away, and by the time we get to Wednesday, things are changing once again. We're looking at a day of some sunshine, maybe not too much sunshine, but also some showers, particularly coming in to western parts of the UK, where some of those will be heavy. And it's still going to be quite windy for many areas, not so much for Scotland and Northern Ireland, but some stronger winds around some western and southern coasts of England and Wales. But those temperatures still reaching 14 in the southeast and 9 in the central belt of Scotland. Sean.
Darren, thank you very much. And thank you very much for your company this lunchtime. The next news on BBC One is at 6 o'clock, but now we join the BBC's news teams where you are. Have a good afternoon.